What was the question, Chris?
He
What?
said
No,
in the
he
form.
actually gave answer. You should question.
Okay, cool. I'm good. இல்ல என்கிட்டயும் கேட்டான் அதனாலதான் நான் கேள்வி கேட்டேன் எனக்கு.
Yeah.
Okay, if my answer is not needed, we can proceed. Yeah.
Okay, like what can you change in Swiggy today, or what can you change in Zomato today?
Yeah. So Intercom had written this article about how they hire product engineers. I couldn't find it now. I even searched for it 2 weeks ago. Essentially, they look for engineers with a product. G used to say that engineers are in DB land, product managers are in UI UX land. So it's hard for, like, it takes a while for both of us to see each other's pictures.
Hi again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OK Boomer. This is going to be more or less a continuation of what we just published a couple of days back. So we spoke between all of us, we spoke about filtering through the recruiter, how to get ahead of so many people applying, and how do you land your job that you're so passionate about or the company you're passionate about. Now, the second step to that is landing the role or preparing for the role and preparing for the interview for whatever role you're applying for. So, all of us here again come with a very diverse background and with a decade of experience in being on both the sides of that process. So, we are going to share what is our take or what is the experience has been for all of us here. To begin with, how we are going to structure this next 15-20 minutes is we'll look into the tech roles to begin with. When I mean tech roles, it's more of engineering, product manager. Like, how do you prepare for that role and what do you share? What are the questions you can expect or how that interview is going to be? And then we'll kind of go into non-tech roles like sales, solution engineering, marketing, that business. To kick off, I think Shankar, do you have some top of mind, or
Yeah.
how do you want to share?
Yeah. Maybe I think I can talk about the PM role and how the interview process typically is. But before that, one thing I keep getting asked by a lot of people is folks in non-PM roles, engineering, pre-sales, or like sales, they sometimes want to move into PM roles and they have this lingering question of how, right? And it's not really obvious to many people. The first thing to understand is that product management is a high stakes role. High stakes because you're making decisions and you're kind of responsible for the work many engineering team members pick up. And that work is going to influence the product. And that work is therefore going to also influence the business, right? So it's a make or break role because you actually make a lot of make or break decisions, especially in senior PM and product lead or like director roles. So because it is a high stakes role, most companies will not be okay with giving that role to someone who has no prior experience in product management, right? So if you're from a different function and if you're excited by the idea of doing product management, the first thing you need to do is within your current company, like try and see how you can move towards the product role before actually like trying to apply for a fresh product role outside, right? So that's the number one thing you need to do. So how do you do it? You need to demonstrate product thinking. What do I mean by that, right? So let's say you're an engineer, let's say you're a pre-sales or a salesperson. You are in front of customers or create opportunities if you're an engineer to get in front of customers to understand problems and think about some of the problems that you can solution for, right? Think about solutions for some problems, right? So, and then talk to a product lead or someone else, brainstorm with them, suggest them the idea, and do it a couple of times. They start noticing the fact that, okay, this person has product thinking skills. This person has the elements of um, the product design, product thinking skills, and I can trust this person with such a role if they ever ask for it in the future, right? So the number one thing you need to do is like within your current organization, what can you demonstrate, which is your product thinking skills, to actually move closer to a product role. So that's the first thing you need to do. It's very, very unlikely that someone is going to like give you a product role if you apply for it fresh to a new company, right? Because it's a high stakes role. And if they do, it is without you having like any demonstrable experience. It's likely that they're probably a bad team or they don't value that role high enough, right? So optimize. Yeah, Sanjeev.
Yeah,
I
go
think
for it.
the product manager role right now is like that EC engineering degree in 2013. So back in 2013, when most of us started college, right? Everyone wanted to be an EC engineer, and no one knew why. That's like the most popular degree. And if you look at most of them right now are working in like IT companies, like either coding or talking to customers. So the problem with the product manager role is that it's gotten too glamorous for its own, for its own thing, right? So if you want to be a product manager, I would pause and think and ask yourself, do you really want to be a product manager because you think that you can do that role better, or you want to be a product manager because it's glamorous and you just attracted to the idea of being a product manager? But yeah, maybe this is a whole episode by itself. We can talk more about it then. But I just want to add that point.
I
Got it,
think
got it.
I think the other way to think about what Sanjeev is saying is intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. Like extrinsic is when you're looking at that because there's a status or it looks glamorous, versus intrinsic where you really believe that some of the things you have within you can help you do that role and you can contribute in meaningful ways. So if it's more intrinsic than extrinsic, it is good. But sometimes the extrinsic aspiration might also lead you to discover that you have it within you to do that role. So, but it's good to be like thinking about these options. Yeah.
For someone who's moving from a PM role to another PM role who didn't have a PM interview before, how will that process look like? Like when you are on the other side of a PM interview, what are the things you look for?
Yeah, I think the process doesn't change whether you're like an associate PM or like a senior PM or a staff PM. It's definitely different for leads and directors, but I'm only going to talk about the IC role here. So usually there's a problem statement that we give out. I mean, obviously we test out basic skills like communication, etc. easily, but the number one thing we look for is like, can this person think through the problem and look at different options and arrive at a given solution or like a specific solution based on an opinion, right? And before they arrive at the solution, they also need to be able to prioritize, right? So, for example, like Chris Bot was reminding me, right? So when I interviewed, I lost the interview, but when I interviewed with Canva, this was like 2 years ago. Uh, the problem statement, I cannot reveal the exact question, but was more about like growing their user base and reducing churn, right? And what they gave me was like a set of data points, feedback from users who had churned, the percentage of users who were churning, etc. And based on geography, how the numbers were different and the qualitative feedback was different. Now, the question for that problem statement, I had to identify solutions to reduce the churn rate, right? So, given that, so some of the things, given a problem statement like this, you should be able to like, first of all, before jumping into the solution, uh, you need to ensure that you and the interviewer are on the same page about the problem itself, right? So you need to ask questions, right? So you need to ask things like, um, can I ignore users, certain kinds of users, right? So what are your assumptions? You need to, like every problem, you make a set of assumptions and you say that this solution is applicable only when these assumptions hold true. And it's good to like ask the interviewer, hey, these are the assumptions that I'm making, these are the questions I have, what do you think, right? And once you've probed that problem, um, and you can actually proceed to actually thinking about the solution. So yeah, primarily there's a problem statement, you given data or qualitative feedback or like qualitative ideas, and you come up with a solution. And you need to think about prioritization. That is really a key piece. One thing that we look for is when this person is prioritizing, are they able to use a certain opinion to prioritize, right? So they could say that I'm going to like, um, this is my prioritization framework. And based on this, I think these are the ideas from my bucket that I will prioritize, right? It can be anything. Um, but you need to have an opinion about why you're prioritizing certain things. In India specifically, because it's really, really hard to find one designers and PMs with design skills, and great products really have like good experiences in design. We also like explicitly look for like, does this person think from a design angle, and are they able to like imagine an experience for the solutions that they thought of? But primarily problem statement, solutions, the ability to come up with solutions, the ability to use a framework or an opinion to prioritize those solutions, a little bit of creativity, and are they able to like put themselves in the user's shoes and imagine a solution, right? That's what I think we look for. The only difference that I've seen is in B2B interviews, they give you like a problem statement and you go to all of this. In B2C interviews, the problem statement has like a lot of analytical data that you can work with. And you also need to be able to like look at analytics because the job demands looking at analytical data to make decisions. You should be able to look at data comfortably in the interview process. So yeah, this is pretty much it. So communication is like low stakes. The rest of it is what matters. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, again, a question to Shankar and Sanjeev, our product management veterans. Are there very different skill sets, but equally important, which can get you the job? Like, is there like a door A, door B? Let me give you an example. So, a lot of product management involves, of course, being obsessed with the product more than anybody else. And the two of you are in particular very good examples of that, right? Like even if you didn't have to do this for a living, you are people who are always sharing product recommendations, either something that you have come across, or say you're reading up on how products work. So when I see either of you, I know, oh, okay, this is somebody who would make for a killer product management manager. And there is also another equally important skill set where this is like an orchestra setup, and product manager has to make sure the rest of the instruments uh, play to the tune perfectly, right? Which is being engineers and design folks, sometimes even marketers or product marketers. Let's say if you are on the hiring side, do you like place a lot of emphasis on distinguishing these two skills, or would you see this as both equally important?
Okay, I'll go first and I'll answer from a specific viewpoint, right? I've not been a product manager at a big company, even though not for the lack of trying. I've applied for roles, just never even got an interview. So that's something that I cannot answer. But I've been on both the hiring side, on the startup side, and also early stage product manager, right? I think there your opinion and expertise on the problem matters a lot more than your experience as being a product manager itself. Because at that scale, all you're trying to do is your company or your founders have an opinion on the problem. You're trying to get that problem into a solution in front of users and then get them to try it out, get feedback from them, bring it back, and then you're continuously iterating on that problem with the context of, okay, can this product make revenue, and then can we win in that market? I think for that, I would personally prefer someone who has a strong opinion on the problems the product solves than someone who has wealth of experience being a product manager, working with engineering teams, working with marketing teams. But that's specifically from an early stage product company. I'm sure that as the company scales, the same skill levels will not scale. You would need different set of skill sets. So for that, again, like I said, I've never done that job, never hired for the job, so I don't know how it works.
Then was somebody who's product obsessed can be a PM. Somebody who's very good at managing tasks, being a taskmaster, is also a good trait for a PM.
I don't think so. You would lose with someone who's just great at managing tasks. It is a strength, but if that is your primary strength and it comes at the cost of other strengths like being strategic, being able to imagine solutions, being able to understand engineering, I think your product will lose out. So yeah, I don't think the task management part matters as much. So everybody has a strength, but task management is not a key strength of product management. You can be a
Task
design
management can be automated.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
more of an engineering manager's role, and it's more of a
Product-
program manager role at a really large company. Yeah.
Product management is yet to be automated.
A lot of
Thankfully.
people are going to be unhappy with that candid answer, Shankar.
It's okay. It's reality.
Yeah.
So, Shankar, on that, interview lines
Hmm.
itself, see, uh, if I am a PM, right? Like I know you said there will be a problem statement, and you will work with the person on the other side in how you think and all of that. How much of everyday products should like is there any prep that I can do with the everyday products that I can use? Is this more common? Is it more common to ask, hey, like what can you change in Swiggy to like
Yeah.
is that more common pattern or is it more very specific to the company that you're applying for?
Yeah, I think typically the pattern is a specific problem is given and you're asked to arrive at solutions as opposed to something open-ended like what will you improve in our product. Because that really tests your thinking skill. When people do it independently, they do it for generic like you see a lot of medium articles about, hey, how will I improve Swiggy? They would have picked a problem. Most of the time, what I see is the solution is very superficial. There's a lot of yada yada about I thought of this, I thought of this, I thought of this. But then the final, but whatever has been thought of, really, it'll feel like it's very superficial, doesn't require a lot of thinking, right? So I think it's important to like find someone experienced and ask them to give you a problem statement and get their feedback on it so you know where your gaps are in thinking. There's also a lot of platforms that allow you to like do mock interviews. There are like PMs across the world who volunteer to do mock interviewing with you. So that'll definitely make a difference if you're doing some sort of interview prep, I think. Yeah.
Okay, okay. We'll share the link in the
Yeah.
description
Yeah.
for the prep. Okay, that makes sense. I'm thinking of a if I'm a PM, also trying for PM, what else I can prep, but also around other engineering roles. I think we spoke a lot around product management, but any other things you want to share for other engineering roles?
I don't think I'm like engineering. I've never hired, nor do I know much. I work with engineers, so I don't think I can talk about that.
Shankar, I think
Prod,
you
yeah,
should talk about the
product marketing.
qualities or the
Yeah,
finer aspects of engineers that you like working with, right? Because like
yeah,
today with ChatGPT, with automation, with AI coming in, how can an engineer set themselves apart from what the coding or the programming that they do? Because for all you know, AI can do it, right? So
yeah,
then what do you as an individual bring to the table? That is a question that I think you should probably answer with your experience of working with engineers.
yeah. So Intercom had written this article about how I couldn't find it now. I even searched for it 2 weeks ago. Essentially, they look for engineers with a product bent. Meaning I'll talk about that, but those are the best engineers to work with, right? So I worked with engineers where you have to describe every part of the solution. It's a lot of work to like help them understand the solution itself, and you have to be like, very prescriptive with what you expect them to build, right? But I've never had fun working with those engineers, right? But then I've also worked with engineers who you don't prescribe things to. You tell them, hey, this is the problem. This is what I'm thinking of. This is what we are thinking of. And like you are able to bounce off ideas with them. And they are also able to like find gaping holes or share ideas on improving what you're thinking about. Right. So I think engineers with a product bent succeed in the long run much better, as well as they're happy in the long run at work because you feel like you're contributing to the product itself in addition to just being able to use your engineering coding skills all day, right? So I think those are the kind of engineers. Anyone who can somewhat, like at least 10% of the time, 20% of the time, think from the user's perspective and play a bigger role than just like coding what's been prescribed. I think those are the best kind of engineers to work for. That said, there are like people who, like solution focused engineers, right? So you give a problem, they'll quickly solution for it. And then there are like people you give a problem and you share some ideas on the solution, they'll build a system, right? They will think these are the possible ways in which the system needs to be built. So they'll basically think at a higher level and they will abstract concepts and they'll be able to like build a system in the place of a uh, single specific solution. So I think the first breed of engineers who are solution focused, it works great when you want to really move fast. The second set of engineers, they work great in larger organizations where you have like a little more time, where it's important like to think through systemic impacts of what you're building, right? So, but yeah, I think each one has its strengths, like in any other role. So, um, yeah, this is the kind of engineers I've typically worked with that I've enjoyed working with. Yeah. Sorry,
I
Sanjeev.
recently started hiring for not specifically engineers, but engineering roles. I'm helping with the hiring. So a couple of things I've noticed, right? So from a point of view of an engineer, so it totally depends on who's hiring for that role. For example, if you're joining an early stage team, chances are there is no engineering manager yet, and it's usually the founder or let's say an HR who's hiring. You also have to understand that the communication style is very different. I mean, overall context, engineers communicate very differently from non-engineers. So I made the mistake of taking that as a signal because that's what I usually do with non-tech roles, right? Communication is a signal for quality of talent. I was very surprised to find out it's not the case with engineering roles, given that it is a very recent thing I started hiring. So just one thing to call out as an engineer, if you think that the person on the other side is not an engineer, I think you have to put the extra effort to just make sure that they understand what you're trying to say because not everyone will kind of make their interpretation. I think the second part, which I am increasingly starting to look for when I hire engineers, for example, in the marketing team, we are hiring an engineer now because we want to build full stack apps for this audience. What I want them to do is I don't want them to be execution machines, right? I don't want them to just take what I have in mind. And for example, if I don't cover an edge case in my document, I don't want them to go implement that without an edge case. I want them to think of the overall solution, think of it and just stress test it from their end and then go implement. I think the solution focused engineers who are not just writing code and just executing, but also thinking about the solution overall and helping me figure out gaps and just doing this collaboratively. So that is probably what I would look for as well.
I think I agree with Sanjeev that they communicate. I mean, engineering communication might be different. G used to say that engineers are in DB land, product managers are in UI UX land. But I don't think, like, if I compare, right, the engineers who communicate really badly are a drain on the team versus like the engineers who communicate well, right? They save so much bandwidth. Uh, like like you can quickly bounce off ideas, arrive at a solution, move on without having to like struggle so much to understand what they're saying. I think communication is a core trait, but how they communicate is different. The communication probably cannot be subpar.
One thing that I'll add here is, I think more than just how they're able to articulate or communicate or get their points across, I think having a point of view also matters. Like there are a lot of engineers who are very passive and don't really push back or don't just take whatever you say at face value. So it is also a good skill for an engineer to be able to give their point of view and, if required, push back where and when necessary.
I think I'm just realizing that all of us are looking at this from a product person's point of view, right? I think an engineering architect will have a different opinion. Last week, Kiran was saying he looks for independence, velocity, and one more thing, right? So, yeah, I think all of this is like our biases of what we want from engineers, but I think an engineering leader would probably like look for a different set of things that are more
So
important.
if you're an engineering leader watching this, please tweet it out with contradicting views and just bashing us so that we can get some negative PR from that.
Any other specific call out, Shankar or Sanjeev or even from Body, right? For
I've
tech
been a
roles.
customer. I've been a customer for a lot of engineers, right? So one of the things that I have deeply respected and valued is when they can empathize with my problem. So for a lot of engineers, they only look at the code performance and like they are looking at it as a very binary problem statement. But the engineers who actually take the time to sit and look at it from my perspective, I'm not looking at their code base. I'm not looking at functionally what is happening, but from a end user experience and an end user objective, whether what I'm working on, am I able to do it? Am I not able to do it? What are my problems? And then go figure out the solution. Those are really the engineers that I have enjoyed working with. So having that customer mindset, having that ability to just look at what the end user is going through and then taking that as input into your own building the solution, I think is a good value to have.
No, but how do I relate it to my interview? Like when I'm applying for a job or when I'm
I
with
mean,
the
I'm
other
saying
person who's
I'm
evaluating me.
encouraging I'm encouraging engineers to work with their end users so that they can talk about that experience in the interview, because it's not 9 out of 10 engineers don't do that. Like,
Okay.
I mean, it's not that they don't do it because they don't want to. They may not get a chance also. So I have happened to be a customer on an internal team. Like I'm an internal customer because I use products of our own whatever engineers are building. So like that, if they are able to be on call, if they are able to talk to customers, I think that is a great opportunity that they need to sign up for. A lot of engineers don't like to be on call, right? Like that is a mindset shift that you need, where you need to be on call to understand what the customer thinks if you want to build something that the customer values.
Cool. So just to get
Okay.
us out of the ideal land and get it into the reality land, I think if you are an early stage engineering aspirant or trying to get an engineering role, your technical skills probably still play a very strong, contribute very strongly towards your chance of getting hired over some of the things that we discussed, which I think is a lot more relevant as you kind of, go up in the team is what I think. I don't know if any contradictions from Shankar or Body.
Yeah, that
I
makes sense. Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
actually say in today's world, a lot of companies are looking to optimize or structure their teams in such a way where they've realized, they've understood that over the last couple of years, like with the economy, they've inflated their engineering team sizes. So a lot of companies today don't need the number of engineers they do have right now. So which means the number of engineering roles available is going to be less. So like you're competing, like even at the junior most level, right? Like across all levels, the competition has increased because the number of roles that everyone who's in that eligible criteria is fighting for has reduced, has shrunk. So I think it like these values are not something that you can learn or prepare for overnight. These are things that need to come from within when you do it day in and day out. So my only advice is to start approaching this as a fundamental shift in mindset that you incorporate in your day-to-day life, because that will help at any level. Like it could be a fresher today, it could be a mid-level tech lead or an engineering manager today, it could be like a head of engineering as well.
I was only thinking to answer Ashwin's question, right? I don't think most interviewees, engineering interviewees, when they are like applying for companies, they are not evaluated on whether they have a customer mindset or not. We think they should be. We think they're enjoyable to work with, but I don't
Correct.
think
Yeah.
that is the reality.
Yeah.
But I think it is valuable at the end of the day. But I think
It's
engineering is sound logic, being able to apply that logic, quickly come up with a solution at the end of the day. Although we've not actually discussed how AI impacts engineering roles
Yeah.
in the future.
Actually, that's one thing
Like
that I'm
more than
specific.
roles.
Yeah.
Sorry, just
Sorry,
like
Shan.
on that, right? So
Yeah,
just
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing that I'm specifically checking for is their comfort level of using AI tools, both for engineers and writers. Because I definitely feel they'll be missing out. Like it doesn't have to be obviously copy paste from ChatGPT, right? But then if you're not comfortable using that, and if you're not using it as a tool, and then I feel you're missing out. But yeah, it definitely has impact going forward. But I also like the fact that how like none of us here are engineers, but then that's the role that we spent the most
Good
time
amount of
talking
time.
about. So
Yeah. So the last point that you said, Sanjeev, is exactly where I had one more question on. Today, as an engineer who's applying for a job, like you said, the comfortness of using the AI tools, right? But how much are you comfortable with an engineer to just use AI and build stuff? Like, do
I
you?
will be
Completely.
extremely comfortable because I use that. Like I am building like tools
Yeah.
using AI tools. I know it's quality. I know it can be done. What I wish I had right now is engineering principles, like the first principles of like just thinking about how to code. I think that if you're not using AI, I feel like you're missing out. I feel like you're inefficient. So that's how I feel about it. But yeah, maybe I'm open to changing my mind. But I think yeah, no, I think
So
it's
today's landscape is more
yeah.
of in the last between the last 2 years or 3 years
I
back to
would say
now is
even last 2 months, right? Like if you have tried Bolt Not New, it's amazing at how it can just quickly come up with user interface. So I think it is automating a lot of what rightfully warranted 2 to 3 weeks of work is now brought down to 2 to 3 days. But there is still amount of time that you have to spend. It's just that you get to now have more time for just like any argument with any automation or AI tools. The the hard stuff or the boring stuff can be easily abstracted into AI is what I feel. But yeah, that's just with my experience. I've not worked with engineers who use AI, so
Yeah.
maybe Shankar has a viewpoint.
I think what he's saying makes sense. I mean, everyone is going to use AI in their job anyway. So there's no point in like not being okay with it. So,
So if someone hasn't tried it up to now, they should definitely try it, right?
yes, I
Before
think
going for the
everyone is
fees
trying.
attached.
There's nobody in engineering who's not trying AI, not using chat GPT. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think we've covered good ground. Like this tips or feedback or the experience kind of really helped. So yeah, let's kind of wrap this up, and we have more coming around the same lines, same tips around non-engineering roles in the next one. Watch out for it. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel so that you get a notification about the next one. Thanks, Shankar, Sanjeev. I think these were valuable, and Body and Bot for the time as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that we are just passionate discussing about a role that we've never done. So
Mm.
We can call it pretend movie reviews, something like that. Pretend interview tips.
so I'm sure the engineers watching this, yeah, please come at us publicly so that we can use that PR.